Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Dino Paielli and his sons Dave and Mark. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dino, when did you start working at the bakery and what's your first memory of it?
Oh, the first memory was when I was about 8 years old or so, during the Second World War, about 1940, 41. That's as far back I go.
And what do you remember about that?
Well, I used to work at one of his places that he had on 39th and not work, but my mother was babysitting us on 19th and 52nd. On Friday nights we would go there, and that's where we'd have to stay with her because she was always helping my dad with the baking and the makeup.
And when was the bakery founded?
Well, he had, I think it was around 1923. That's what I was told. I don't go back that far, but that's what I was told. And he had several places that he rented. He didn't have his own building. He had about 2 other locations that I remember about. But I was born in one of them because he rented, and I was born right above the apartment that he went the store and the bakery at.
When did you actually start working as a paid employee, so to speak?
Oh, we didn't get paid too much, but I was a sophomore in high school. That's when I wasn't even paid because it was just spending money.
And what did you do then?
I started off as a pan boy, just like every other person, cleaning and scraping pans and keeping the place neat. And little by little, I just hung around and watched the bakers work, and that's how I picked up the craft.
Do you remember how your father came to Kenosha?
He came through Canada. He was from Italy, and they entered the country through Canada.
How did he come to Kenosha?
Well, he worked his way down from Canada. He worked the roads, road building through to the area as he was coming down in the Chicago area, and then he didn't stay there very long. He came into Kenosha, and he worked at Simmons for a little bit, and he didn't like it, and that's when he was interested in the bakery. So he did get some friends that had worked in the bakery, so he got infiltrated into one of the bakeries, and little by little he learned more things because he learned his craft at the end of World War II, or one, I believe. Excuse me, one, and he did the bread making there in the commissary, and that's where he got his first start, and that's what stuck with him. So that's what he wanted to do when he came here.
And so after high school, you worked as a pan boy in high school.
High school, then, yeah.
What happened when you graduated from high school?
I had the opportunity to go to school or college, and at that time not everybody went to college. It was 1950, and some went into the factory, some went to extension school, but a couple of my friends went on to universities. But I picked to stay with my dad and help him in the business.
And your brother?
My brother, he graduated in '48, and in '50, he joined the Navy for 4 years. So he didn't work at the bakery at that time that much.
So he got out of the Navy, and
by
what happened?
1950, he joined. It was during the Korean War, I believe. He joined the Navy for 4 years.
Okay.
So it was just my mother and my dad and myself.
Okay, so what is that you first did when you decided to stay with your dad and work in the bakery? What was the first thing you had to do?
I have to observe. He had about 3 other employees at the time, and I just watched them, and then I just picked up the craft on bread making with them, and that's when I learned. Then little by little, I picked that up, and then we went into more sweets after 1951 or 52. My dad didn't even make a donut. All he did was make bread and bread rolls. That's it.
How did you actually make the bread? What kind of flour? What kind of yeast? Was there anything special about his choice of those ingredients?
Well, now he used Washburn's gold medal flour, or patent flour. That was the only flour we had at the time, and the yeast was regular Red Star yeast, and that was big at the time. And we've been using it through the years. Now there's other. Budweiser has a yeast combination, red, and but there's others that we use that are just as good.
Okay, so describe the process of making the bread.
Well, it has a certain amount of salt. We could try to keep that salt content down, and it was at that time they used lard, a lot of lard at that time, and now flour, salt, and water, and flour. That was it. It was a bland, kind of a bland dough, because the bread, the doctor says if you have high blood pressure, that was the best bread to eat at the time, because it wasn't fat and it wasn't high in salt. So we try to keep that down to this day, what we use.
Okay, and so once you mixed all the ingredients into a dough, then what was it that you had to do?
Well, we had to ferment it for about an hour and a half, and let it rise, and then we'd put it on the bench. We had a big bench, and we had to scale every piece by hand. We scaled everyone by hand. We had a little scale with a knife, and we'd scale it by hand and roll it, let it rest, and then later on, we'd have to make it into a longer loaf, mold it into a longer loaf.
The shape that you actually...
And it was all done by hand at the time. We didn't have any machines.
And then what kind of oven did you use to bake the bread?
He had a brick oven, and it was it only would hold about 100 loaves of bread at one time, and you'd have to put it on a long pedestal. What is it called? Peel board, and you'd have to get in that corner. Say that if it was the length of this room, put it in the corner, and you start building half of that oven, and then you go to the other half and put it over there, and the other half, and then after a while you had to turn it around, because when I started, it was a coal burning oven, brick oven, and it had hot spots, and you knew that use that oven like you knew the palm of your hand, so you had to move that bread around. Then as the bread was baking, the oven would cool down, and then you had a little more control, and you'd have to, and little by little, you peel it out and put it on bread racks. Yeah, that's how I did it.
And how long did you make bread at the
At that brick oven, at the old bakery, I call it, 5 years. I
5
did.
years, a
5
big
years.
brick
That's,
oven.
that's how I started.
Okay, was that oven ever replaced?
No.
Still use it?
That one we don't have.
Okay.
That had to be torn down because the building wasn't his at the time.
Okay.
And there was no value in that oven at that time. Nobody
Okay.
wanted a brick oven.
So here in 1954, your father found a place to build his own bakery?
Mm-hmm.
And where did he did that on 39th Avenue?
39th Avenue. He had a friend that he knew for years, and he owned the property on 39th Avenue. He had a couple lots there, and that's how he got to get that location by his friend. He sold him 50 feet of one lot at the time. Yeah, and that's how we got to that point.
Okay, and so a building was built in 1954, 55?
Yeah, I would say he started thinking about it in 53, 54, and they started building it in 54, because we started baking in that oven at Christmas, 55. That was our first bake.
And that was a new oven?
New oven, brand new oven.
How long did it take you to get used to that oven?
Not too long. It was a different concept because what we did was we didn't have to have that long stick to put that bread in the oven. The trays moved up to the front of the door, and we had put our bread on boards, and all we had to do is slide it in. We do that to this day. Yeah.
Okay, so when your brother came home from the Navy, he joined the bakery as well?
Yes.
And what did he do when he came back?
He was in charge of sales and trucks and maintenance at the time. It was on a smaller scale than we have now, but it was big enough. There was plenty to do. Yeah.
Okay, to this day, you still bake in that oven?
We still have that oven.
Okay. And then as you grow, you used another oven.
Yeah, 5 years after that oven was in, I would say in about 1961, the bread business was really going really good, and we couldn't keep up with that new oven. So we were able to find another one like it, but it was all broken down in parts. So we added on a piece to the building, and we had another oven to bake more bread at the same time.
Okay, you have trouble finding that oven?
Well, we traveled a lot. My dad, we traveled Chicago. Before we bought this first oven, we traveled to see what they looked like and how they bake bread. And we did a lot of research. And the oven the second one that we bought was the same type, but it was refurbished and it was rebuilt. And we still use that oven today too. So.
And where did you find that oven?
Our new oven came from Franklin Park, Illinois, and the second one was from Chicago. That one of the bakers replaced, and we were able to purchase that one.
Okay, so you said that the bakery bread business was doing very well at that time.
Yeah.
What percentage of the business was bread?
Oh, when my dad, like I mentioned before, in 1950, we didn't make much sweets like we do today, the variety. We had basic cakes and a few Danish and and the cookies, and that was it. And then once we moved to our location now, things picked up, and we didn't have the equipment at the time for freezers like we have today, and everything had to be made and baked all in the same day. We hadn't. That's because there was no way you could keep it very long. But then we went in, we just expanded as the demand. We got to give credit to the people of Kenosha that wanted some bakery products, and they kept us going. To this day, we appreciated what they did for us. And we'd get a call for a certain product, and we tried to make it for the customer, and that's what kept us going.
Do you have an example of that?
Example?
Something that somebody said, why don't you, or you don't have this, and you said, well, we'll find a way.
Well, there might be one example. We have all kinds of bomber buns and hamburger buns, but the last 3 years, brioche buns were popular, and we didn't make brioche buns. And we had customers that were demanding that they wanted brioche buns. So and that came in the middle of summertime. We were busy, and we figured, oh, we can't do that. We're too busy. But we did eventually develop that to please our customer. And to this day, we finally got one that's nice, and it's consistent. So we picked up a nice account on brioche buns now.
So did one of the bakers develop the brioche bun recipe that you use?
He did.
He did, Mark. How hard was it?
It wasn't too difficult. I just used a product that we already make and just made it bigger, and took probably about 3 weeks to get it down. And brioche is just a big dinner roll type.
We tried,
so we
yeah.
tried different things, and we
Different
found one
things.
that worked with what we made in
But he
a shop.
developed it to what it is today. And so far we have some accounts that are buying them, and now they're asking for them. It worked out. One thing led to another.
Okay. Who were your first customers when you were making the bread? Who did you sell it to?
Italian grocery stores mostly. Yeah.
And you developed into more grocery stores, or did you? It was more grocery
More
stores.
grocery stores, and at that time we didn't have restaurants as many as we have today. My dad only had 2 or 3 restaurant accounts, and the rest were all grocery stores, and we had a home delivery. I even got on a truck with one of our drivers, and we had some houses that we delivered bread to. And in those days, there was a bakery called Omar Bakery, and they delivered house to house, and they sold a lot of bread that way. And my dad had a few counts that way. I used to go with the driver to help him with the basket. Nothing was packaged; it was in a basket. And they'd go up to the stairs and see if they need any bread today, and that's how I started. I
And
observed everything that was going on.
What was the style of bread that was most significant or most popular?
At that time,
Right.
just Italian bread, and we made a lot of twisted Italian bread, and we didn't do as much French bread because we didn't have restaurant accounts at that time. But
How about sandwich bread?
we had some, yeah, but it wasn't a big. It wasn't a. My dad had enough pans for 100 loaves, and there were 5 different size pans. He didn't. It wasn't big in pan bread. It was all hearth baked, and so when I got into the business, I figured we're going to buy enough pans. So we bought 25 pans to make 100 loaves and all the same size. So that's how we started changing a little bit at a time to make it more uniform.
Okay. So, did you make loaves of sliced white bread?
That's what I did. I started over there to get it more consistent and the same size. And today we make a lot of white bread, but we make a lot of Italian size loaves sliced, and that took over some of the white bread business.
Okay. What are the differences in the styles of, I'll call it white bread, that you've made? I mean, you said there are French loaves and twisted Italian and the white bread and round loaves.
Round bread.
Are there any difference between those recipes, or is it more of a matter of shape?
What we've done to compete some with the competitors from Chicago, we developed a harder crust Italian bread, and it's made with different stronger flour, because they were coming in with a little bit thicker crust, so we try to compete with that, and we have that in our store to this day. And we only have about 2 outlets that buy it, that we put it in. One is Tenutas gets it from us, and we do some at Woodman's, I believe.
A couple stores.
It's a little harder crust, and it's more dense.
Okay, so
But
you
it's-
mentioned that grocery stores were your biggest sources for selling your bread.
Yeah.
Okay. When did that ever change?
It changed a little bit. They still sell a lot of bread, but it's changed since I would say the 70s. It started. These bigger chain stores came in. We didn't have any big chain stores at that time, but there was some, but not as big as they are today. And every chain store has a bakery department, and that's when it started changing. We used to have an account that we serviced. We could bring bread into those stores any time of the day if the manager says it's okay. Now you can't put one item in there without seeing corporate first. That was the advantage we had. If we had an extra 100 loaves of bread that day, we'd call the manager up and he would take it, and we'd bill it to the chain store. We'd bill it the same way, but now you can't do any of that.
So what did you do to make up for the problem with not getting enough of your bread out there?
Shelf space.
Shelf space?
Yeah.
Was that a
He knows
challenge?
that
Or?
about shelf space.
Shelf space is a challenge, but
Well, how much shelf space did you have back in the 70s?
in the Piggly Wiggly stores,
What's that?
in the Piggly Wiggly stores, how much did we have? 6, 8 feet.
We had a lot.
We had a lot. Used to deliver that Piggly Wiggly on 80th and 22nd, and there must have been, I would say 4 shelves about 12 feet long. We used to fill it up every day, full.
There's a store that we used to bake some bread later in the morning, and we'd have extra 100 loaves of bread. We'd call them on 80th and 20th, 22nd. He says, "Can you handle 100 loaves of bread if we give you a couple loaves free for bother?" "Yeah, bring it in. They would sell it. Now you can't do that.
So what is your shelf space limited to today?
It all depends on the different stores. We can get up to
Range.
6 feet of shelf space, and if you go to large stores like Woodman's, we have nearly 42 linear feet of shelf
Oh.
space. So it goes from 6 to 42.
And that's for all your products?
All our product. Yeah.
So Woodman's space is enough?
Woodman's is one of our largest spaces, yeah, in Kenosha.
Okay.
They sell the most
Yeah.
bread for us.
Okay, so
They're easier to work with.
okay. So, in the mid-'70s, the grocery stores became less of a supplier or accepting your products. And what took its place? What did you do? Where did you find new customers?
Restaurants.
The restaurants.
more restaurant
the
business.
restaurants, yeah.
So you had 2 or 3 restaurants in the mid-'50s, and today you have
How many do you think we have? Couple hundred?
Easy.
couple.
Easy 200 restaurants.
Okay, so that's a big change, and
Yeah.
and this is all bread.
Bread and buns.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much of your business today is bread and buns?
90%,
Still there.
still there.
80 and 90%.
80 to
80
90%.
or 90% is bread. The other part is your cakes, your pies, your cookies,
Yep.
your sweet rolls.
Sweet
Yep.
rolls.
So we're moving into now restaurants are buying your products, and have there been any other changes to the way you bake, the way you get your customers, different products that change with the times, or a new product that you find in order to keep up with everybody, in order to keep your business going well, that you change viewpoint on what kind of bread or how you were distributing it?
We expanded in 1975 to our larger facility, and we put in a 69-foot long tunnel oven,
And you still had the other 2.
and the other 2, and that's when we started to basically produce large quantities of bread faster. With the equipment that we expanded to, we had different high-speed machines that we can put out a lot of quality product.
How do you control? What's your quality control system?
We're the quality control.
What do? You go out and pick up a loaf of bread and
Yeah.
cut it open, or?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
We all work on the floor, so we see if the product, as it goes in, as it comes out, if it's no good, we don't put it out.
And you all share the same quality mindset?
Yes.
You don't argue and say, that's not how you tell us done, right?
Pretty much always the same, yeah. If there's a problem with it, we'll say, hey, that doesn't look good, what do you think? So,
This is the difference in the way that the people's diets changed. This is Easter. This is Easter and Good Friday. When going back to the time we put that tunnel oven in, the first one, we made 3,000 loaves of Italian bread, just Italian bread.
hearth-baked.
Perfect bread for the weekend, for Easter and Saturday and Sunday. Today, that product is very, very, we still make some, but it's not as much. We have other breads that we didn't make at the time, took some of it away, but the people's diets changed. I bet you if we made 500 today, that'd be a lot, against 3,000 loaves 25 years ago. That's what changed.
So when did your father actually retire from the business?
Well, let's see. You remember?
He retired at 62, didn't he?
65, I guess.
Yeah, 65. He got out fast.
Well, how old was he? Was he
How old
old
was he?
enough to retire?
Oh, yeah.
He was 65 when he retired, and he was what,
86.
86 when he passed away?
No,
82?
82.
82 when he passed away. So I started in 74, and I don't think he was out by the end of the late 60s.
could be
I think we said after Grandma passed away, I think that's when he retired.
67, yeah. About 1967, 68.
And your brother, he worked how long?
Until 1993.
Okay.
We worked about 45 years together,
Okay.
Tom and I.
Okay. And you still go to the bakery, but you're not hands-on with the management any longer?
No, I still go there. But they do the,
So when Dave
They have
and
all the
Mark took
responsibility.
over all of that, what year was that?
what's that?
What year did they take over as the
He's still
Owners.
he's still a CEO.
He's still a
Okay.
CEO. We still work for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're
But
responsible for the operation
I'm-
of the business.
Yeah,
and
pretty
its
much.
success.
I know it's been about the what, last 10 years, 10, 12 years now. Maybe I've been pretty much managing the production and hiring the employees to work in the back and overseeing stuff. I would say about 89 when we did the addition into Old Century building there. We
was
started
93.
93.
93, 94.
Yeah, I'd probably go back that far before when I started getting into more of the management of the
Okay.
operations.
So you handle the production and the inside operation.
Yep, pretty much.
Dave, you handle.
I handle all the drivers, and maintenance. Basically, I took over the position of my Uncle Don when he retired.
Okay. And you took over Dino's job.
I had two great mentors. I had my father and I had Bob Santelli that mentored me for a lot of years. So, and when Bob retired, I filled in and I took over his responsibilities. And then Bob and my dad taught me a lot of stuff that I know today. And still
so-
carries on through.
All right. So when you started, pardon?
Take some of that. He took some of
Bob's stuff
Bob's
too.
stuff,
Oh yeah, so yeah, all
Packaging.
the packaging.
packaging materials, and ordering. And
Okay, so when you first started delivering your bread by truck, how far did you take your bread?
That was before my time.
When we first,
When you first had trucks that delivered bread, how far did you
I
go?
delivered. I delivered bread in the beginning there, and we didn't have any accounts in Racine, but I had a sandwich place in Racine that needed some bread. We used to put it on the bus, and we used to take it over Highway 32. There was a building, and he would drop it off. I brought it downtown at the square, and they throw it on the bus, and that was as far as we went. We
Different
didn't go
times.
past Racine.
And you handled all of the city of Kenosha at that time?
Pretty much whatever we had, yeah. But it's still, we're talking not as many grocery stores as they are today.
But you still have all these restaurants you have to deliver out to.
Yeah. No, I don't think we had that many restaurants at that time.
Well, you're not at that time, but
No.
now
No.
today
Now-
you have to still have to go a
Now-
distance to do that. So
Yeah.
what is the radius of your delivery
You
distribution?
want to say that?
Well, we're doing roughly 60 miles a radius, a little northern Illinois, up to through Milwaukee and Racine, Kenosha, Lake Geneva, Delavan area.
Okay. Do you do any out of state? I wouldn't call it delivery, but do you ship any product?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
We ship now to Kentucky, Ohio, and that's basically the two states that we hit right now, and they distribute to wherever they go with our product.
Okay. Now, obviously, that's not bakery fresh.
It's our wholesale frozen line.
And when did you start doing frozen?
Well, this took off about 3 years
years
ago.
ago.
We started doing this, but we've been doing it with another company in Milwaukee for Reinhardt Foods for a number of years, I would
So
say.
was this something again a change in the determining the success of the
Yeah.
bakery?
It's another little offshoot of where we started, yeah. A little
So
more
you-
growth.
You went from just selling bread to
Just a
the-
DSD, just daily delivery
and
to
then-
an wholesale
okay.
shipping, yeah.
So how is the bakery business doing now for you? Are there any challenges that you face today that maybe were a little different than other times?
You can talk to, Mark knows about all the challenges.
Oh, okay. Mark.
Ever since this pandemic hit, it's been a constant challenge. Employment, trying to find employees to come into work, searching for products that you've been using for 20, 30 years. All of a sudden companies are letting loose the ones they don't want to make anymore, so you're scrambling to find replacements for certain products that you have to have, and it's been a real challenge the last 3-4 years.
Okay, now, you mentioned earlier the challenge of grocery store policies and the limited space you have on the shelf. Are there any, you said fresh deliveries maybe fading a little bit. What about availability or prices for your wheat, or, because obviously everything's going up in price, but how about the wheat flour or the flour you need?
You know that. That's
A year, I'm paying twice the amount for wheat flour today that I paid last year at this time. It's gone up. It's gone up 50% in a year.
50%.
This year.
Where does your flour come from?
Right now, I'm buying from the mill in Kenosha, from Ardent Mill in Kenosha here.
From the mill. Okay. Do supply chain issues have any effect?
I've had multiple supply chain issues. Companies not being able to keep up with product because they're having the same products, finding sources for their ingredients also. Because it's not just the United States that they're buying products from; they're buying it from all overseas. Could be coming from Europe, could be coming from the Asia, East Asia, and
Who are some of the biggest producers of wheat that you need, or you have to buy from, or had to buy from, that you can't anymore?
well, they're still out there. I mean, there's the Winona Mill, Winona Flour. You got the Ardent Mill; they're big, and Winona's still big too. They're out there. I mean, the problem's not finding the companies to source it. The problem is finding what you need to make it.
Does the war in Ukraine have anything to do with wheat supply or availability?
what,
Well, they said that the wheat from Ukraine they export 30%. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't believe that the United States was buying 30% of the Ukrainian wheat, but I'm not
Okay.
privy to all the information on that, so
Okay.
it's hard to say.
Any other challenges? The FDA coming up with rules about ingredients and what they can or can't contain that was not a problem before.
A lot of labeling.
Unknown caller.
Labeling with the FDA and the state. They have all kinds of new rules coming down the pipeline. They're trying to put all bakeries, they want to do one rule for everybody instead of watching what kind of business, what kind of bakery you are. So they're trying to put a cover over everybody so everybody's the same. And it's a challenge.
Have they changed ingredients that could be used, or?
No.
Trans fats.
The trans fats, that goes back.
shortenings.
Shortening, they took the trans fats away. That was another challenge, taking the hydrogenated shortening away.
We had
That's a
a
big one. That
Yeah.
took me a year to figure out.
formulation.
Formulations
because of
had
the
to change.
changes. Yeah. In order to get the same cake, we had to go through about 4, 5, 6 different shortenings to get the same, because they changed it. You couldn't use the same one, the trans fats, so we had to change the formulation a little bit to get what we always got from the other shortening. So it did make a big difference.
So,
There's-
what's the future like?
I don't know.
Go to work every day right now.
I know, I wake up and hopefully get all 10 toes on the ground when I get up in the morning. Still go in every day. Still work side by side with the employees that we have, and try to find replacements for us as we get older so we can train so the future keeps on going.
So, oh yeah, I'd like to ask about that, and I forgot earlier. When you first had your building on 39th Avenue, how many bakers did you have?
Well, it was my mom and dad and myself, that's 3. And I think he had, I don't know, if there was maybe 3 clerks and maybe 3 helpers in the back.
I didn't bring it with me, but Georgette's got the 1957 ledger of pay.
Oh,
And you
really?
had about 25 people at that time, between store clerks, drivers, and bakers.
Okay, but that's not in 63.
That was 1957.
57. Okay.
So,
Well, that's where we start hiring a little more.
so again, because bread was your main source of income, how many bread bakers did you have relative to the number of bakers that made your cakes and pies and cookies?
Bread bakers.
Bread
Versus-
bakers versus your your sweet crew.
Oh, right, the sweet crew was, I would say we might have had 15 bread bakers and helpers, and only about 5 sweet production at the
Okay.
time for cakes and a few cookies that we made.
Where are we today with bakers and sweet bakers?
Clerks and drivers.
Well, the bakers produce the products. So how many bakers do you have?
No. What do you consider a baker? A baker's helper, or the
Well,
person
I
that
don't
runs
know.
the
How
oven?
much does the helper? How much does the helper help?
Anything
The
that
helper helps a lot.
Okay, so how many of those you have?
Oh, what do you got? 5, 10. I don't know, about 25.
25.
25 for sure.
Responsible for the baking of the bread.
Mm-hmm.
On a
Baking of
daily-
bread.
on a daily
And
basis.
buns.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the bread products.
Throughout.
And on the sweet side,
We commingle, so I would say another 10, 12.
okay. So where's the bakery business in 10 years for you?
It's
He's going to let you know when he's 100.
it's a challenge. I think it's costing us more to put those trucks on the road and give them that service that we're giving them today, because the grocery stores aren't cooperating like they should. Give this little guy a little more space, and we still got to get that bread to that store, and it's getting more expensive. Fuel is, well, you know what's happening today, and that affects us. If we use 100 gallons of gasoline a day and they raise it $1 a gallon,
What does that cut into your bread profit?
Right. So it's not going to be easy to make a profit. If we lose, like this past 2 weeks, we lost 2 transmissions on trucks. Now we have to get in place. That's about $6,000 a piece to put those trucks on the road and everything else. And it doesn't look good if those trucks aren't full. That's the problem. The expenses are there, and if we can't get those trucks full to make it worthwhile, to put 1 truck on the road today, it would take the first year it would take about $100,000 to put 1 truck on the road, between the truck and the driver for the first year. $100,000 is to put that truck on the road. So you have to do the volume in order to make a profit. And that scares me sometimes. There's not enough bread on that truck.
So where will you be in 10 years?
Hopefully still delivering bread.
Hope it's going to carry on. I might not be working on 10 years from now, but I'm going to
But I,
We're gonna
give it a
keep-
try.
We're gonna keep pushing until we can't push any longer.
but I have hope because we talked about frozen product going out of state or wherever. Our concern is we don't have to put that on our truck. They come and pick it up on a semi. So, but still, you have to give them a little more incentive on the price, get it a little lower in order to do that. But once it leaves the bakery,
Doesn't come back.
it's done. We don't. But now we guarantee with our service, we put the bread on a shelf. If it doesn't sell in 2 or 3 days, we have to take it back and give them credit. So that's another issue. So that's why we're trying to do some of this new business that we started 2 or 3 years ago. And that's because it's getting too costly to get those trucks on the road.
Well, thank you all,
You're
Dave,
welcome.
Dino, Mark, for
welcome.
joining us.
But
Right.
Thanks for taking your time to
This is great.
do this for us.
that's how it goes.